Welcome to this Remindo training video for the International and European Law Department. This training video is for lecturers who need to input their exam questions in the question bank of Remindo. This training relates only to multiple choice questions, that is MCQs. The role of the lecturer in this particular environment is to input the questions that have already been reviewed and finalized by the educational reviewer, to indicate the correct answer choice and the point allocation for each question, to add any relevant media. This is optional, but could include PDFs or other resources, to connect questions to learning outcomes, and to indicate the Bloom's taxonomy level for each question. You will need 4 resources in order to input questions in Remindo. An exam preparation chart for Remindo, which you should have already completed and had approved by the educational approver. A checklist for quality assurance, which is provided with this video. Permissions to use Remindo as an author. If you do not have access to Remindo, you can be granted permission by a key user. And this access link to the Remindo environment where tests are managed. Gaining entry to Remindo is through the link that is provided here and also provided with the resources for this video. You may have to also authenticate yourself, as is done with Osiris or access to the T drive. Let's look at the interface in the question bank in Remindo. When you have gained entry to the Remindo setting, you will see this interface. It welcomes you and it allows you to choose from 2 different areas and environments inside of Remindo: the question area and the tests area. To input questions in the question bank, you will need to go to the questions area. Please note that these 2 choices are also available above in the right-hand corner. In addition, there's a notification button that may have notifications for you if someone has reviewed your questions and wants you to give more attention to them. You would see those notifications here. Let's go to the question bank. The interface of the question bank is such that on the left side, you can see the questions that have been placed at our faculty level. And on the right side, you can see questions individually in this part of the screen. And in the lower part of the screen, at times when you have clicked on an individual question, you will see the properties of that question below. For example, here when I click, then the properties of the question becomes available below. Let's look at the left side. Here on the left side, you must first ensure that you are in the correct faculty, in the correct program, and then also within the correct course in the program before you start to input questions. Let's look at how you can get to that point. You start first by using the triangles to the left, and when they are pointing down, there is a menu below. So when we press this triangle in the International and European Law program, we get more menus. These menus are the courses that currently have been placed in the question bank with questions. One course is here, Introduction to EU Law, on our screen, and then there is a testing course that I've set up for this training called Introduction to Remindo Training. When you go into the question bank, depending on when you're accessing it, there may be many more courses listed here. Let's look at what happens when you then go to your course, the one that you're assigned to place questions in. What you will see is by pressing the triangle, all of the learning outcomes from your course now appear. And that is because a key user has placed those learning outcomes in this environment based on the chart that you provided to the key user with the various learning outcomes from your course. Again, to look at the right side, what you will find is that the questions that are available inside of any individual course will appear on the right. So in this Introduction to Remindo training, there are 3 questions. If we press this level, Introduction, we will see all 3 questions on the right side. You may need to toggle down to see more. Of course, in a course like Introduction to EU Law, where there were 40 questions, then when we press on Introduction to EU Law and we look in this side, we will see many more questions listed. But let's return to our training environment. In the training environment, below in each of the learning outcomes, you may have the opportunity to enter a question. Notice that there are 3 questions here and they have been entered in the first 3 learning outcomes. And then the remaining learning outcomes here have no questions attached to them. It is fine if you do not have questions for some of your learning outcomes. If we press on the first learning outcome, we will see the question that's associated with it on the right side. We can access that question by pressing again on the question somewhere here, and then it will give us more properties about that question. This was your introduction to the interface that you use inside of the Remindo Question Bank. This portion of the training will teach you how to add questions to the question bank in Remindo. The first important tool for adding questions in Remindo is to make sure that you have on hand your exam preparation chart for Remindo for your course. That exam preparation chart should have been finalized earlier, and therefore you should have all of the final questions for your exam in the chart. Again, to remind you, the chart doesn't just have the questions, it also has the correct answer choice, the learning outcome that the question relates to, as well as the Bloom's taxonomy level. All of these 4 categories are important as you import and transfer your questions to Remindo. This Remindo Quality Assurance Checklist is the second tool that you will need. Navigate to the portion of the tool that relates to the lecturers. In this portion of the tool, you have, again, an explanation of what your role is, as well as a reminder of what tools you need to use. And finally, in each of these prompts, you have questions or statements to help you go through the process of inputting your questions in the question bank. Please note that half of these are dealing with the question bank and the other half are dealing with another role that you have as a lecturer, that is with the matrix and the test. So you will need only to use the prompts that relate to actually setting up the questions. And that goes to this last row, number 12. And so here we ask some very basic questions. We ask you firstly whether you've previously completed the tasks that were necessary. For example, have you submitted your learning outcomes to the key users? That's important because if we don't have those learning outcomes, you won't be able to input your questions. We need to know that this exam preparation chart that we just viewed is actually finalized by the educational reviewer. We need to also verify that you have submitted your exam instructions to the key users, because the key users also need that information in order to ensure that all of the media that you plan to use, the dictionary links, are already noted for the proctors. So your first order of business then will be to go through the remaining steps down to number 12, making sure that you tell the relevant learning outcome that's visible there, enter the question with the correct course, that your questions match the offline exam chart. So you should really just be copying and pasting, that you actually entered the question and chose the proper learning outcome, that you indicated the correct answer to the question, that you assigned a Bloom's taxonomy level, and that your questions are visible in the question bank. So these are all very important as you put your information into the question bank. Let's now add questions to the question bank. Firstly, we go to our proper course, and then we find the learning outcome that we want to add a question to. Remember, you should have already indicated which of your questions correspond to which of your learning outcomes in your exam preparation chart. So here I'm going to add one question for this learning outcome. This is the fourth learning outcome. I need to actually press my cursor or click so that I can actually choose that learning outcome. And now I can tell that there's no questions yet for this learning outcome because this part is blank. And I want to add a question. So to add a question, I go to the upper right side to this area and I click on Add a New Question. So now it's going to add a question to this category, and it's so important for me to make sure that it's the correct learning outcome where I'm adding the question so that there's no confusion in the end. So I add a new question, and as we have said, this training video is about multiple choice. Multiple choice is always the default in Remindo, but if you are entering another type of question, you could toggle here and get other possibilities for the types of questions that you can enter in Remindo. For now, we remain with multiple choice. There is a code here. For now, the assessment committee hasn't determined if there has to be a particular code in here. It could be the OSIRIS code for the course. But one thing that I'm going to suggest is that because this code does not actually influence anything else in the test, it might be wise to actually give yourself a set of keywords that are related to your course so that anyone coming here can recognize which questions correspond to which types of courses. Course material. So maybe since I'm teaching about Remindo, I'm going to say input of questions as my code so that I know that this question relates to that particular theme. And then for all exams that we are doing, we currently are not doing them as paper exams. So we will put no, and that's because we are using a proctoring service, and that proctoring service is doing everything online. If that were not to be the case, then you would want to have a paper exam and you would put yes here. For this particular test, this is a final exam. So this is not a formative test. It's not being given before the end of the course. So I leave this as no, the default setting. And then because this is the final exam, it is summative, and I check yes here. And my language default is English, and calculators are not normally used, so that's also defaulted to no. I can now press add here on the bottom, and that will now allow me to enter the actual dialogue for making up my question. Now here, Remindo is not necessarily as intuitive as we would want because we can't really edit on this side of the screen until we press one of these, which means that we have to one by one copy and paste in our choices and our questions. So first, you should know that if you wanted to make sort of a instruction for this question or an instruction for a set of questions, you could put something here by clicking and then writing on the right side. But I'm not doing that because I'm doing individual questions for everything. So I will click below where it says question prompt, fill in instruction. And I then go to the right side, I click, and that allows me to put in text. So I could say, I might ask, how do you input questions in Remindo? Notice that the left side has not populated, but that's okay. It will at the right time. So now I can put my first answer choice in. Again, I click there, then I go to the right and I write it into the text or copy paste it into the text. In your case, you would likely be copy pasting. So that's one possible choice. I would go through and do it for all of the remaining choices. All right, I've now put in all of my answer choices, but please note that I do not save at this time, and that's because I need to choose this gear on the left. These are the settings, and I need to first go into settings and add some additional information. For example, I need to choose the correct answer, and I also need to give the point allocation. So I'm going to now press on this gear sign, and you see another dialog on the right. This dialog gives us a variety of options. For example, it asks us, what kind of question is it? Is it a single answer question or is it multiple answers? In this case, it's a single answer, which is usually the case because that is the policy that we have in the department. The shuffle option is defaulted to yes. That just means that each of these question choices, instead of being A, B, C, D and fixed, they're going to change around for each of the users. So some users will get maybe in Microsoft Word as their first choice, and then in the T drive and a second choice, and other users will see it in a different order. The display here, I want to leave as vertical because it will look like this here and then the drop downs of each answer. However, you may not like that. Maybe you want it horizontal, you have that option. For now, I leave that vertical. And for the scoring type, I want to score based on correct answer, and I want to give the answer 2.5 points. And that is because right now we're using 40 points as our multiple choice questions, and when we have 2.5 for each one, it will add up to 100 points. Please ensure that you always include the total score. If you do not, then there will be a mistake in your input and we will have to make those changes later. Here, I leave everything the same except I need to indicate which of my answer choices is the correct answer. So my first answer is the correct answer. So here where it says correct, I have to choose this area by clicking on it. And now to the left, it shows that this answer choice is correct. If you want to give comments, you have that option. Here I will only confirm. Now what we see is something telling us that the question was saved successfully, and more importantly, we can actually see the question. The question has been entered into our question bank, and we can tell on the left side that we've added it to the fourth learning outcome because it's in blue highlighted. And really importantly, we have to look at this top bar and we have to look at our question. It has an ID number. This is assigned by Remindo. It also tells us the code that we put in. I said input of questions as my code. It gives me the status. The status says concept. This is very important. What that means is that Remindo will not use this question yet for an exam. And that's because Remindo wants this question itself to be looked at by another person, a second person. And that person, which we are now calling the technical approver, will have to change the status of this from concept to approver at another stage in the process. You can see that it's a multiple choice question, and you can see that I was the author of the question. I gave it a score, 2.5, and this information shows that so far it looks like I've done everything that I need to do for this. But if you take a look at the reviewer and the checklist that you're supposed to use, you also see that one of the other obligations that you have as a lecturer is to also indicate the level in Bloom's taxonomy that your question actually relates to. And you can't do that until you come to the screen that we see here. And when we go to categories, we can also look to make sure that this category that we wanted it in is also present here. So it is. Create a test in Remindo under the Remindo test tab. So it tells the faculty, the program, the course, and then which of the learning outcomes it is under. So this has been properly assigned a category. However, when I looked in the properties, it did not tell me anything about the Bloom's level. And this is where we have to add the additional information. So in the properties section, we say add a property to this question. And when we add a property, we choose this toggle and we say Bloom's taxonomy. And then we get a menu of the levels of Bloom's that we could put. This question is actually a remembering question. So we're going to put a check there and we're going to save. And when we save, now in the Properties tab, we have a Bloom's taxonomy property that's been added. And now we've actually completed everything that we were supposed to do, because we have put in a question with answer choices. We have also included the correct answer and the point allocation. We connected it to a learning outcome, and we also made sure that there was a Bloom's level through adding this property. And when we preview the question again, we see the same thing. We have the opportunity to actually test the question, and also we can view it as a student would view it. So let's view it as a student. This is what the student would see. There's no answer choice included there. We can check an answer. So let's say I check the wrong answer. We say in the T drive. And then we can test the question. And you can see that I've gotten it wrong. So it seems to be acting correctly because it recognized that this was incorrect and that I should have actually chosen this top one. So it's testing well. However, I want to let you know how you can change if you've made some mistakes. So the first thing that you should know is that the preview menu is where you can make some changes, and that will send you back to the editing menu if you say edit question. And it will allow you to go back and make any changes to your question that didn't come out correctly. So for example, let's say you didn't write this correctly and you want to change a word. So you want it to say testing and not test. Now you make that change, and you could save the question now if you wanted to, and then go back and you will see that it's done. But let's also consider other changes that you can make. You can go back also through the gear and make changes to anything that you did wrong here. So one thing that is commonly left off is the total score. You might have left this as 1. And now you need to change it to 2.5, so you can come back in and actually make the change. You can also, if you forgot to tell which of these answer choices was correct, you can come back in and make the correct answer choice. Don't forget that you want to save the question, not the new copy, but the question. So now you save the question, save it again. And when you come back, your changes will show. So it says testing now because I made that change. You can also, if you've forgotten to put the properties in, you can go to properties and you can add the property so that it's correctly telling us what Bloom's taxonomy level is there. If you've forgotten to give it one of these learning outcomes, you can also do that. So let's say that, oh, I put it in the wrong learning outcome, or I didn't give it a learning outcome. What I do is I take the right learning outcome. So let's pretend I wanted it to be this learning outcome instead. So if I wanted to be that one, what I need to do is back here with the question in this category, I need to take the correct one and drag it in. And this turns colors. And when I drag it in, it now put the correct one in there, the one that I wanted that said schedule an examination in the test, right? So now I need to get rid of the one that it was incorrect for. So now let's do that. So it's going to ask me to confirm. I can just copy and paste this, or I can write it in there if I want. And when I do that, then I confirm. And you notice now, it now has no questions in that other one because I've removed it, and it's put that question into this bank. So it's always possible through this drag and drop in the categories to change this learning outcome if you put it in the wrong place. So for all intents and purposes, everything that we needed, this question that we've added has everything that it should have. And we want to now just do this one more time so that you can be reminded of the steps. This time I will add some media so that you can see how that is also done. Here, I want to add one now to the create a test and Remindo. So let's do it there. I'm going to add a new question at the upper right-hand side. It's multiple choice. My code is input of questions. And then I'm not going to use this as a paper exam, and everything else is going to stay the same. So I add, and now I can put in my question. How to add media in Remindo. I've now given 4 choices here. I can update my preview if I want to. And then I can go to my gear and I can make sure that everything is set up. So it's vertical, I want it to shuffle. The correct answer is what I want. It should be 2.5. So I make that change. My correct answer this time is not A, it's B. So I'm going to put correct as B. And it shows up. And now I'm going to save my question and confirm. So now it says it's been successfully saved. I see it in the question bank, so that's good. I'm going to press here and click. And then I'm going to preview it. So in my preview, I noticed some things that I don't really like. I noticed that I don't see the actual answer choice there, so I'm going to need to edit it. I also forgot to put my media in there, so I need to go back and edit that properly. And I don't see, of course, I don't see the point allocations. But while I'm here, I can at least put it in the correct level of blooms. Let's see if we've got it in the correct, first I'll see if we have it in the correct learning outcomes, and we do, so it's correct there. So now I need to add my blooms property, add property to this question, and then I add it as Bloom's taxonomy, and this time it's understanding. And now I save. When I go back to preview, then I need to edit my question because for some reason it didn't show this answer. So I'm going to just go back in. I'm going to check what's happening here. I have the correct score in there. I have the correct question chosen. It's B. So I'm not really sure why it doesn't show up when I see the preview. But I'm going to just make sure I save the question again. And I'm going to check how it appears here. And again, I don't see it, but maybe if I view it as an author, yes, if I view it as the author, then I can see that it does have the correct answer there. And that's what's most important to me. And it also has 2.5. So I know that it has everything that it needs to have, but how do I get the media in there? So let's edit the question. And please note, you can do this when you first write the question. You don't have to edit. So here's the media. I want to upload a file if it's my first time. Sometimes the files might already be there if you've already done this before. And then what I want to do is add the file. So you can do it from your actual computer. Now it's been uploaded. And now I'm going to say save. Now you can see that what I did is uploaded there. So now I'm going to press this X to close the window. And now I'm going to go again, and this time I'm going to choose it. So now I chose it. I'm just going to say readings for the question. And then I can choose where it's going to be. So sometimes you can put it on the left side and have no text after it, or you can have it on the left side and then the text continues right next to it. Whatever you want. I'm going to do no text. And then you can see that it's got the PDF there and then the question. So now I don't really need to change anything else in this, so it's okay for me to save directly. So I'm going to save it, save the question again. And now in my preview, you can see that it's got the reading for the question. So you could tell exactly what it is, the name of the document or whatever it is. So now that's how you add this to your question. Okay, so now we have completed what you are expected to do as the lecturer, and we've seen that firstly you come in, you make sure that that you're in the correct course and that all of the learning outcomes are there as you expected. And then you have an opportunity also to add your question. And when you add your question, you go in and you write the question and you go into the settings section and you put in that point allocation and the correct answer and you save it and it appears here, and you make sure that it has a concept as the status, because that's really important, and that there are no error messages. You double check in your properties to make sure that it has an actual Bloom's taxonomy level assigned to it and that it's in the correct category in terms of your learning outcomes by looking here. If it is not in the right category, you can drag and drop this to be in the right category and you delete the one that was incorrect. If it does not have a property, you simply go to add properties and you pick out the Bloom's taxonomy level. And as usual, in the preview section, you can view it as the student and see what the student would see, and therefore know whether or not it's right. You can check to see if the answer is right. Choose one of these and then test the question. Incorrect. Why? Because what did I say was the correct answer? I said it was the third one. So that's basically how you check it. And then the most important thing is that the person who comes to approve can see that this is a concept question and that it's still waiting for their approval. And they will see that when they go into the question bank.